Hey, welcome to Two Doctors Homestead. My name's Daniel, and I got a question. Are you prepared for the next pandemic? Are you prepared for the next lockdown? You know, it could be 100 years from now, or it could be 3 months from now. And there's some rumors out there that it might be closer to 3 months from now than it is 100 years from now, even though you might expect 100 years from now to be a little more statistically probable in terms of pandemics as they are. I don't know if it's a new pandemic or it's just going to be a continuation. Maybe we were never out of the last pandemic, but certainly there are rumors of lockdowns, and there's possibility of lockdowns at some point, whether that's 3 months from now or 10 years from now, or as I said, 50 years from now. And are you prepared for that? And I'm guessing most people are not, and I'm going to do the best I can here. We're still triple digits out here in Texas, so it's a little bit hot, but I want to get out here in the shade and jump in and make the video, right? Are you prepared? And I think a lot of people are not. It's not prepared at all for any kind of lockdowns, any kind of disaster. I have friends in California, and there's that hurricane that almost hit, but not really. Said it was actually kind of disappointing, at least in Southern California area. I know there was some flooding and whatnot, but just the people I spoke with that live out there, they did point out that, right, as soon as the hurricane's coming in, after the hurricane already hit, parking lots in the grocery stores were packed, so people are running out to get supplies in the middle of a 100-year hurricane, right? So no, I think most people are not prepared for any kind of a disaster, even a storm, much less another pandemic, right? Much less another lockdown. So, you know, I want to get into what are some things to think about, some preps you can have. You can prepare now. It's certainly easier even now, you know, for a disaster to prepare than it is to wait till it's already started. If you remember back in 2020, it wasn't that long ago, we had a pandemic, we had lockdowns, and the moment lockdowns came in and were announced, it was sort of already too late to get some items. And I got a couple things here to flash as reminders, right? Not saying you have these or you should have these or you shouldn't have these or get into the debate around them, but if you recognize this is actually an N95 mask. I've had these for many years. I used to use them when I was painting, but those weren't available, right? At least not anywhere that I could see. These were the things you really wanted to have, not the paper mask, but an N95 mask. Those were gone. Those were gone before the disaster was announced back in 2020. You look on Amazon, they're available now. Now, I'm not saying you should or should not get masks. That's certainly a personal preference, but speaking of lockdown, speaking of disasters, and what actually happens is the moment something hits, it's too late, right? And that's what preppers are all about, is being prepared ahead of time, not panic, not run to the store, not fight for toilet paper. You all remember this stuff, right? I think some of you guys still have plenty of toilet paper left over from 2020 that you may pass on to your grandkids. Now, I'm not saying, once again, go hoard toilet paper. Please don't. But there's two sides of it. One is, as a prepper, do you have at least some kind of a stockpile so you don't have one roll left and you're done? But also is to not panic, right? It's an example of potential shortages, and if there isn't another lockdown coming, which some people are saying could be in a couple months, there could be shortages, right? There were shortages last time. Maybe there won't be shortages of toilet paper this time. I don't know, right? I have no way to know that. Some of the shortage was driven by panic, and for some reason, somehow people thought, hey, we're going to run out of toilet paper, so everyone panicked and went to the store to buy all the toilet paper they could. And I'm sure you saw that, and I saw that. People stacked up with shopping carts full of toilet paper for no apparent reason, right? Other than they were worried that they would somehow run out. But shortages can happen, one, from panic in any disaster situation. We all see it every single time. So many people unprepared rush to the store. We got to get milk, we got to get bread, we got to buy all the toilet paper we can afford just in case there's a shortage, and then that certainly creates a shortage, right? The other side is if lockdowns return. So it sounds like they might be in the near future, or at any point in the future. Is the very nature of locking down a society enforcing quarantines is also going to create shortages. It's just how it works, right? If you're forcing people to stay home, they won't be going to work, and if they're not going to work, they won't be able to produce goods, right? There is going to be a consumer commercial impact on any kind of lockdowns, no matter how they do it. Another item certainly you might all remember is hand sanitizer. Remember people panicking, oh my God, I can't get hand sanitizer, and people doing YouTube videos on how to make hand sanitizer at home. Once again, may or may not be something you're interested in having in your preps, but don't wait until the next whatever. Be like, hey, I sure should have gotten some hand sanitizer, so let's go to the store and we'll fight some strangers for the last little squirty bottle of hand sanitizer, right? And something else that was hard to find during the last lockdown, during the pandemic, right? You couldn't find it anywhere. It was probably a good year or two. People would line up at 5 a.m. whenever there was a delivery, and I don't necessarily know why, right? I think there was a lot of conspiracy theories around why there was a massive shortage on ammo. Don't know, I'm not going to get into that. Once again, the idea is if you have what you need now, if you have your bases covered, you don't have to panic. You don't have to rush to the store, right, all the time. Another thing in our area, flour. Flour was actually hard to find, right? You couldn't get flour and you couldn't find bread. Now that might have been regional, and any shortages anywhere in any lockdown, whether it's in the United States or any other country, absolutely could be regional. You would sort of expect they would be, right? So you want to cover your bases, and that's why we talk about prepping. And said I'm a second generation prepper, but there's been people prepping for years, or even people that are new to prepping. Is the idea is to cover your bases, right? Have what you need on hand for at least a couple weeks supply, a couple months supply. Some people might have a couple years supply of certain items, right? Maybe not everything, but food and water and whatnot. We've made a lot of videos on having your bases covered. Other areas you may remember, going down memory lane. I know everyone wants to relitigate, 2020 and 2021, but certainly we could be doing that in 2024. Hospitals were impacted, right? And remember, trying to go to the store and find stuff like this was unavailable. It was just hard to find, at least where we were at. You go to the store and the entire aisle is cleared out. You're like, dude, I just need some mucus relief, right? Well, maybe get a box, right? A box and put it on the shelf just in case. I think the expiration date on this stuff will last for a long time, but certainly use your best judgment. But I mean, I think we were struggling. People were had the sniffles and couldn't even get basic medication. But you can take it to the next level, and if you have the extra money to spend, something like Jace Medical, this gives you emergency antibiotics. Probably not a bad idea. And we know the last time there was a pandemic, there were hospitals impacted. It may have varied from place to place, city to city, state to state, but hospitals were impacted. My wife actually had a heart attack during the last pandemic, and it was much harder than it should have been for her to get care, right? Because hospitals were impacted. There were sick people stacked up, and whether there's another lockdown and or pandemic, you just have to keep in mind, do you at least have some of the basic things, or even more expensive, more advanced things you might need to just survive, just to get through the day, right? There was economic issues tied to the last lockdown that you would expect in any lockdown anywhere in the country, whether it's here or China or anywhere else. Job losses. It's hard to say, hey, go ahead and be financially independent by January, right? Certainly we're all doing what we can do, and here I'm showing you all this great stuff, and you're like, great, I spent all my money on toilet paper. How am I supposed to be financially independent? And it's not easy, right? And I'm not pretending it is, but certainly you want to consider that, right? With any kind of preps or anything like that, don't buy stuff you can't afford, and certainly don't go into debt right now. There's a lot of other potential economic issues that we're dealing with. Education, we all remember homeschooling. If there's another lockdown, it depends on why, right, and what's going to happen with that. But certainly to be aware that is possible. What if we have to go back to that, and what if the next pandemic hits and we're back to homeschooling or even social isolation? I know that was a big deal for a lot of people. Do you have Do you have a tribe? Do you have people you can connect with, people you can talk to? Social interaction is important to your mental health, right? And also not being in 100-degree weather, right? Important to your mental health. But we're going to keep going on this. So going into lockdowns, right? If there's another pandemic, we hit shortages, we hit hospitals impacted, economic issues, education, social isolation. What about civil unrest and chaos, right? If you're locked down, are you bugged in, are you bugging out? Do you have a better place to be where you're at? Civil unrest certainly happened. I'm not just talking about things like the George Floyd protests. You know, look what happened in China. There was massive unrest. Look what happened in Canada. What happened in Canada with the truckers, right? That was civil unrest. In any kind of a lockdown situation, people tend to get a little stir crazy, and you're going to have a little civil unrest potentially. Certainly don't want that to happen. Do you bug in? Do you bug out, right? Do you have your safety? And I want to pull this out here. Had friends in Maui, close to where the fires were. Do you have a fire extinguisher? Now, a note on fire extinguishers: if you never pulled the pin and try to put out a fire with these, this will not put out a house fire, right? This is for small fires. If your house is on fire, evacuate. Don't try to put out your house with this. If you have a small fire, if there's a kitchen fire or something like that, but a fire extinguisher, not a bad idea, right? For any reason at all times, whether you're a prepper or not. But let's take it a next step when we're talking civil unrest. A gas mask, right? There's ones that'll actually block CO2. This doesn't have the canister attached because once they're open, they start to expire. Do you need a gas mask? Well, some people might be thinking, yes, nowadays you might need a gas mask. You look at everything going on, a gas mask might not be a bad idea. This one was pretty cheap. I know they make gas masks that go up to, say, $300-400. This was not a $300-400 gas mask. It actually does come with a canister, and there's different canisters available. But if there's civil unrest and you're living in the big city and there's fires or smoke or tear gas or something like that going outside, certainly don't go out and participate or encourage the chaos. But a gas mask might not be a bad idea. This is a S23A soft plate carrier I'm wearing. You can see it's very comfortable and flexible. Once again, hopefully you don't need that. 99% of the population or more doesn't need it, didn't need it, and hopefully you never will need it. But if you want to keep going with that, ballistic helmet. Once again, you probably don't need it. Hopefully you never would, but it's an option. Get on AR500, get you a ballistic helmet, right? Once again, hopefully you don't need it. 99% of the population doesn't. And then we talk about home defense or self-defense. Do you have any home defense or self-defense options? This technically is a pistol in 223. 99% of the people don't need it. Wouldn't ever need it, shouldn't ever have to use it. But one of those things, do you have it and not need it, or do you need it and not have it? And anytime you're talking about self-defense or home defense, understand the laws, right? Because you're going to be dealing with the outcome of any self-defense, home defense decisions you make if you survive the situation for many years to come. So understand the laws in your area, right? Castle doctrine. When are you allowed to defend yourself, defend your family? Don't go off willy-nilly on that one, right? You might live to regret it. Understand the laws. Look at stuff like self-defense insurance. We've talked about Texas Law Seal. Get educated. Be safe, right? In the end, you hope to never have to protect yourself, protect your family. But if you have to, you want to be prepared to, and think about that ahead of time. So we want to jump in on that, right? Just the word lockdowns gets the brain going, gets everybody in a certain, I don't know, panic. But we've been through it. We've all been through it. You've been through it. We'll get through it again if it happens again. But think about preparing now, right? Don't wait. Don't be the people that are running to the grocery store 3 days into the lockdowns trying to buy hand sanitizer, right? Get what you need now. Don't hoard. Don't buy things you can't afford, but think about getting prepared now. So I hope that helps out. Thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.